There we go. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Connect with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading on social media. On YouTube, subscribe to our channel at Grade Level Reading. On LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, follow us at Campaign for GLR. And on X, follow us at Reading by Third. Please use the hashtag Learning Tuesdays and tag us to tweet anything you learn from today's conversation, and we will be sure to reshare. Once again, I welcome you to today's webinar. My name is Sierra Sanchez, and I'll be behind the scenes helping to produce. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge our enterprise and programmatic funders, as well as our individual donors. Your support not only allows us to hold these vital conversations, but also helps us create meaningful opportunities to share insights, foster connections, and build the GLR community. I also want to give special thanks to our Leo sustaining sponsors, who you can see on the screen here. Thank you for your contributions and allowing us to have these weekly learning engagements. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping details to share with all of you. First, we'd love for you to introduce yourself, so please use the chat box at the bottom of the screen to share your name, city, or state, and your organization. Be sure to select everyone so that we can all see each other's chat messages as well. All attendees are in listen-only mode, but we encourage your engagement both through the chat box and by posting any questions you might have in the Q&A box. We will dedicate the last portion of the webinar to respond to those questions live, and our panelists will be typing out responses throughout the entire webinar. The conversation is also being live streamed on Facebook. A link to the recording and all resources, slides, and bios will be sent in a follow-up email to all who registered. And lastly, we'll be having a brief on-screen poll during our closing and highly encourage you to respond. This helps us with our commitment to continuous improvement. Also, before we start, I would just like to turn your attention to some of our upcoming webinars that we have through the rest of this month. Next week on the 18th, we have an exciting doubleheader, starting with a funder to funder conversation at 12:30 that will look into the new PBS series, Phoebe and Jay, and will feature the show's creators and lead curriculum advisor, who will discuss how the series helps teach kids how to manage challenges with humor and positivity, while also delivering a foundational literacy curriculum. Later that afternoon, we'll have the continuation of our Parents as Curators series, this time looking at the rapid development of microschools, which now serve up to 2 million students in the US. Join us to hear from leaders in the microschools field, discuss why parents are choosing this route for their children. It's not listed on the screen here, but during the week of Thanksgiving, we will be having a special rebroadcast on our YouTube channel, which you can find more information for in the chat. And in December, we hope you'll join us again, both for our continuation of the Parents as Curators series and for our session on the 9th, which is a Crucible of Practice Salon. Lots of different opportunities coming up, and all of those registration links and information will be posted in the chat now, and we hope you can join us. And joining you now is Hillary Jones with Foundations, Inc. and the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome and thank you for joining the Campaign for Grade Level Reading and New America for today's session. We are going to spend some time exploring how digital tools can supplement and strengthen instruction for English learners. And so we'll highlight how they can monitor progress, tailor instruction, gather data, and extend learning through additional instruction time via these tools. And so I have the privilege of introducing our panel for today. First, we have Veronica Benavides, who spent her career exploring and advocating for the intersection of identity, language, and learning, and now is the founder and CEO of Bilingual Generation. We have next Robin Edwards, an assistant professor of TESOL in the Department of Special Education and Language Studies at Western Michigan University. Her research focuses on innovative approaches to supporting multilingual learners, including AI-enhanced tools to support this work that we'll get to hear some more about in just a bit. And next we have Havala Hansen, who is the founder of Evergreen Analytics, and her research really looks at how policies and programs yield impact through their work. Then we have Steve Sofronas, who is the Director of Partner Education and Learning Experience at Elevation Education, who's responsible for designing and deploying a wide variety of resources and learning experiences that support educators' ability to support in turn multilingual learners. And last but certainly not least, we have our moderator today, Amaya Garcia, who is the Director of Pre-K-12 Research and Practice within the Education Policy Program at New America, our partner in developing today's session. Amaya conducts research and analysis on English learners policy, bilingual teacher preparation, and career pathways in bilingual education and early education. So at this time, we are going to welcome Amaya, and I'm going to pass it over to her to moderate today's conversation.
Hey, Hillary, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really excited for the conversation today. Before we get started with the panel, I'm just going to go through some very short slides so that we can all get a better sense of the English learner population. Next slide. So as you can hopefully see, the English learner population is racially and ethnically diverse. While the majority are Hispanic or Latino, we have quite large proportions who are also Asian, Black, African American, and white. There are 5.3 million English learners who are also known as multilingual learners or emergent bilinguals enrolled in K-12 public schools across our nation. They are in the process of learning English and receive targeted instructional services to help them gain English proficiency, and for some, to foster their bilingualism. A majority, so around 72% of ELs are US citizens, so we don't want to be conflating them with other populations of immigrant students. And ELs speak over 283 different languages, which are dynamic and change over time. In fact, every state has a unique composition of language prevalence and diversity that is influenced by multiple factors, including immigration patterns, refugee resettlement, and more. So as you can see, Spanish, Arabic, English, Chinese, Vietnamese, those are some of the top languages. You may be asking why English is one of the top languages spoken by English learners, but often the way that it's described in the data is that these are kids who may have been adopted from countries that speak English. And so there's other factors that influence the kinds of languages that they're exposed to at home. ELs are a heterogeneous group that have varying characteristics that may impact their needs in educational settings. So I think a lot of times we think of ELs as sort of a monolith, but that is far from true. Some students are new to the country. We know them as newcomers. Some have experienced interruptions to their formal education. Some are dual identified as also having a disability, and others have been classified as English learners long after what is deemed appropriate, so usually more than 6 or 7 years, and we think of those students as long-term English learners. Too often, these students are viewed from a deficit perspective that frames their educational needs as problems to be solved, and that is perpetuated by incomplete data and assessment systems that fail to capture the nuances of these students' abilities and knowledge. Education policies are really designed to address and cultivate the considerable assets that ELs bring to the classroom and often ignore these students altogether. Next slide. One thing that we see over the last 10 to 20 years is that the EL student population is growing. It grew by 15%, representing 4.6 million students to now 5.3 million students, and nearly 11% of all K-12 enrollment. This comes at a time when we are seeing national declines of student enrollment. ELs are the exception, with federal data showing that over the last 10 years, 42 states plus DC experienced an increase in their EL population. And then what this slide and the next slide will show is that they're also increasingly moving to new destinations that have less familiarity with serving linguistically diverse students and families. So as you can see, the states with some of the biggest growth are Louisiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, which are places that you might not think are hotspots for English learners. Next slide. This slide sort of encapsulates that change over time. It's to just explain what the dots mean. Each dot represents a school district, and the size of the dot is proportional to the percent of EL enrollment, as is the shading with darker dots representing higher percent EL enrollment. So you can see that there's this gradual shift towards away from what we think of like the traditional hotspots like California, Texas. I mean, they're obviously still there, but we see them moving to newer destinations. Given these changes and the linguistic diversity and varied needs of the EL student population, we're here today to talk a little bit about the role that educational technology can play in supporting and supplementing their educational experiences. We'll hear from wonderful panelists who are directly involved in the development and research of educational tools that support families, teachers, and students, so that we can learn more about the opportunities, benefits, and key considerations to take into account when using educational technology with English learners. So that's the end of sort of the slideshow and overview, and we will go into our conversation. So I'm going to start with a question for Vero. Thanks so much for joining us today. As you know, families play an integral role in shaping and supporting children's language development, a fact that may have even greater emphasis in multilingual households. A key part of your work is helping children build stronger connections with their heritage languages. How can technological tools help families support bilingual language development and maintenance at home?
Thank you for that excellent question, Amaya. In complete agreement that families are critical to supporting the literacy and language development of students, especially our multilingual learners. And with our multilingual learners, we have a lot of work to do to truly unlock the potential of our families in supporting the literacy and language development of students. And technology can be a great tool. But I want to start with just grounding us in the legacy of linguistic oppression, understanding that a history and present day system that sometimes makes families feel like their languages or their cultures are not welcome in school can impact their use of technology. So we need to start there. It's not uncommon for families to think that their heritage or home language is not useful for the academic development of their students. This was the case for my parents, who went to school. They were the first in their generation to go to any type of schooling in South Texas, and they were physically punished, emotionally ridiculed when they were heard speaking Spanish. And so they believed when they had kids that Spanish, our home, our heritage language, their first language, was not going to help us academically. It wasn't going to help our literacy development. It might delay us. And so while we've made a lot of advancements in dispelling these myths, they still exist. So a lot of our work with families is around leveraging technology to help families understand that language and literacy skills transfer, that a strong home language or L1 sets their children up for success in the acquisition of L2 or a new language or the English language. So we start with our organization, Bilingual Generation. We start with leveraging technology to create connection and community. And it can be something as simple as a WhatsApp group for families, a space for them to safely gather virtually, to ask questions, to share resources, and to support each other. In moderating that space, sometimes we meet families where they're at and a lot of educators where they're at in terms of consuming information through videos or reels, examples of bilingual parenting. So I want to start there, that it doesn't have to be super complex, but really can be something as simple as a space for connection and communication and safety around promoting a multilingual mindset. We also share child-facing tools that can support language development while promoting positive linguistic and cultural identity. We recommend developmentally appropriate technology, especially in early childhood, that is slow and protects the focus and attention of their children while supporting bilingualism. So, for example, we've created an app, the Billy app, that has bilingual affirmations for families, community cards that promote positive sense of self while supporting language production skills. We also share with families free online libraries where children can read alone or with an adult, podcasts, audio stories. I'll share some of those resources, links for that in the chat. And then finally, we help families see that technology doesn't have to be complex or high intervention or expensive. It surrounds us so we can make small changes to help the language development of our children. If parents are going to let their children watch a show, they can change the language on Netflix, Amazon, or Disney pretty easily to support their target language development. If they have an Alexa or something like that, they can set the language to their home language and teach their child how to play games like I Spy in their home language. So we really help them to see what already exists and how can they leverage that for literacy.
Thanks so much, Vito. I really liked what you said about challenging these longstanding myths around the impact of speaking your home language and what it means for kids and their academic development. Next, we're going to transition to Steve. Steve, we first connected many years ago through Elevation's Highest Aspirations podcast that features a variety of topics related to EL education, like assessment, bilingual education, supporting different groups of students like newcomers, family engagement, etc. The podcast aligns with Elevation's larger goal of providing educators with resources to better support their EL students. Will you please share more about how educational technology can help educators with some of their day-to-day tasks and key job responsibilities, such as monitoring EL student progress, and about how the needs of school districts should be included in the product development process for educational technologies?
Yeah, that's a lot. I'll do my best. Thanks for having me, first of all, Maya and everybody. It's great to be here. Yeah, so I'll start with just by mentioning that I was a high school teacher for 17 years in Massachusetts, taught high school Spanish, and I think, my general answer to the question is the same as it would have been as a teacher, and that is, and as a technology integrator at the time. And that is, you have to start with what your goal is. I think that I'll date myself a little bit, but I was a part of the one-to-one sort of boom in teaching. And during that time, when we got an iPad for every student, it became very much sort of a glorified notebook. Smartboards became glorified whiteboards, and whiteboards, and we weren't really doing much with them in order to kind of get to that next level. And so I think during that time, the mistake that we made was leading with the technology. So, you know, uh, the smartest people and the people who should be making the decisions are the experts in the rooms and school districts across the country. In our case, those are generally going to be the EL, ML, ESOL, EB admins, and the people who are sort of know their students and know their teachers the best. And so at Elevation, what we like to do is take their lead and sort of create an implementation process and a partner education process that works for them so that they can best meet their students' needs. I will say that it's very different. Having started at Elevation, I actually started on the training team. So I was going out to various districts and sort of showing them they had already purchased Elevation's products, largely our platform, which helps them sort of analyze the data that they need to do. To your point, Amaya, those monitoring forms, which can be a lot when they're in Manila folders, to kind of house them on a platform that works, and also ensure that the teachers are completing them, not only for compliance purposes, but to understand how the students are doing. Processes like those work pretty well in school districts that are sort of used to working with multilingual learners. I really like the slide that you showed earlier that showed some of those states that we don't really expect there to be a lot of multilingual learners at. And the other thing that I'll add to that slide is that um, in those states and in those school districts, many of whom we serve, the EL admin is also the department chair for foreign language. They're also running the SPED. I mean, they're wearing many, many hats. And so partnering with organizations like ours and many people on this panel is really, really helpful in terms of just educating the educators and the administrators who, through no fault of their own, don't have the experience that a district really needs to make some of the decisions that they're making. So I guess I'm saying that, I'll kind of end where I started, which is like you have to look at the problem that you're trying to solve and then figure out what technology is going to work for you. Families were obviously just mentioned in Veto's response. Understanding what family communication looks like in the form of parent letters, which are important, obviously, for entering a language program and exiting a language program. Is that a specific need? Great, Elevation can help with that. But if there's not a need that technology can help with, and that there are other sort of less shiny ways that they can help, I'm 100% all for it. I think we need to look at all of the elements. So bit of a general answer, but that's the way that I'd sort of I'd kick it off. I guess like I'd end with there's a quote by Noam Chomsky that I love, and I might not say it exactly, but he said, technology is kind of like a hammer. The hammer doesn't care whether it's used to build a house or whether a torturer uses it to injure somebody or something like that. I think it's a really good quote because it kind of tells a story of what, technology is able to do for us if we use it wisely.
Thanks, Steve. I really liked what you said about starting with what the goal is, why you're using that technology to make sure that it's meaningful and being used in a way that actually supports student learning. I like what you said about iPads being glorified notebooks. Moving on, we're going to start talking about other kinds of tools. And I just want to say we are talking about lots of different products in today's webinar. We're not trying to say that this is representative of the full scope of products and resources that are out there. This is just one sort of corner of the work that's being done to use educational technology to support English learner students. We're going to move to Robin Edwards, who is conducting some very interesting research on the use of AI-powered earbuds with English learners in Michigan. So as I mentioned during the opening comments, we know that English learners are a very heterogeneous group and speak over 200 different languages, which means that school systems may struggle to support lower incidence languages or lack teachers and support staff that can communicate in students' home languages. Robin, you conducted a pilot study on how these AI-powered translation earbuds may be able to help fill this communication gap. Will you please tell us a bit more about this technology and how it was used in the classrooms you studied, and the promises and challenges that this type of technology holds?
Yes, good afternoon from snowy Michigan. It's wonderful to be here with you all. Thank you for your question and thank you for having me. So I thought I'd start with giving some background on how I came across these earbuds first. So I started with a small internal grant at Western Michigan University, and I purchased 7 pairs of Time Kettle is the company, X1 AI-powered real-time translating earbuds, and I decided to pilot them with my graduate students as they were already in service, ESL and/or content teachers, and they were across elementary, middle, and high school. I also decided that the target of multilingual learners were newcomer students, so with WIDA score 1 or no to limited English proficiency, as I felt they were the population of English learners who would best benefit. So I invited teachers to introduce the earbuds with a quick brief one-on-one with their students to kind of explain the purpose of them receiving the earbuds and maybe a few boundaries, like let's keep them clean because we all know what high schoolers are like. The earbuds come in a secure case with a front display where they could also read the live transcripts from the teacher. So students would take out 1 or 2 of the earbuds, choose their language, and begin hearing the teacher's lesson and instructions. I should probably also note that there are over 43 languages and 96 accents altogether. There were 35 when I first purchased them this time last year, so I assume the company is slowly adding more. There are 5 different modes to choose from, but the students would mostly use the listen and go mode. So with this particular mode, they could hear instruction in their home language. Many would even copy keywords or phrases into their notebooks. Students would then remove the earbuds when they didn't need them, and sometimes you'd actually see them talking into the device for quick two-way translations for them to write, something in their notebooks. And this was also possible through this mode, right? So the devices were used more in the middle and high school settings as students were more tech savvy, and they were in more lecture styled or teacher taught classrooms, where in practice-based classrooms with strong ESL support, students used them a lot less. So I think this is a good reminder that skilled human teachers beat machines when instruction is already well scaffolded. And then about a month ago, well, about a month of the students using the earbuds, I conducted some interviews and collected some reflections from the teachers. And the findings were pretty amazing. So teachers reported more participation. There was being more work completed. There were more attempts to communicate between teachers and students, which was lovely. Teachers repeatedly described that moment where they saw their students' faces light up when they heard their own language in the classroom. I can testify that there was more access to content, fewer language barriers, which obviously resulted in more academic gains. But most importantly, for me at least, teachers saw lower stress levels, a stronger sense of belonging, and better well-being overall. So the other thing I wanted to mention is once the newcomer had the earbuds in, teachers also mentioned that they could keep teaching the whole class, right? And provided less one-on-one support. They were able to circulate with the students. So I'd say some of those promises, to kind of summarize, was there was rapid content access, fewer language barriers. We have the opportunity to honor some of the home languages in that classroom. Students are calmer, happier, and less teacher crisis, right? So they not trying to translate all the time. And obviously that comes with some challenges. One of the biggest challenges was there may be some over-reliance. However, in the study I'm doing now, many students are handing back the earbuds just after a couple of months because their proficiency is growing. And others are keeping them, but mostly for situational scaffolds, which is exactly the kind of self-regulation that we want. Another challenge is if not implemented well in the schools, there may be a delay in language development, which is why I'm asking ESL teachers specifically to be in charge of these tools, because I think their expertise is essential for deciding when to remove the earbuds. I do want to say really quickly that I'm currently working on publishing the work I've done on the earbuds and creating a program designed for newcomer English learners specifically. And I would eventually love to see this program being implemented in schools across the state here in Michigan. The program would focus on training ESL teachers using research-based language acquisition practices on how to carefully implement the devices. So I just wanted to end on that, but there's so much more I could say, but I will finish there just to keep in time.
Thanks, Robin. I really like how you grounded your comments in the needing the expertise of teachers to really make sure that these tools are leveraged effectively. Next, we're going to keep sort of on this trend of research and think about other applications. So next, we're going to talk to Havilah Hansen. School systems across the country have invested in high-impact tutoring to support student learning and improve academic outcomes, particularly post the COVID-19 pandemic. Will you please tell us about the research you conducted in South Carolina on the impact of an online tutoring intervention to improve adolescent EL's literacy and English language proficiency? What were the primary features of the intervention and what did you find?
Thank you, Maya. As you mentioned, high-impact tutoring has been the shiny thing for the past few years, and there's a lot of evidence out there that it works, but not always and not for everyone, and it often comes with a high price tag. And that's what our funder, Accelerate, wanted to learn more about when they funded our study. Off to Class is a company founded by former teachers of English as a second language, and they develop curricula and lesson materials for ESL teachers primarily to implement. And the platform they built is tailored to adolescent English learners and their teachers, and is designed to work well in an online tutoring setting as well. So for this study, Off to Class wished to test the efficacy of high-impact online tutoring paired with a curriculum they developed specifically for adolescent English learners with low levels of literacy. So these are the students who have little English skills and are also struggling to read and write in any language. So often they have special learning needs in addition to being English learners, or they have experienced limited or interrupted formal education experiences. And as adolescents, they're in a tough spot because they're enrolled in classes where reading is expected as a vehicle to learn versus explicitly taught. In order to get the content they need to progress towards graduation, they're expected to take this information in through reading when their instructors are not equipped with the skills to teach literacy, and the materials that are out there to teach literacy are not age appropriate for them. So in Richland 2 in South Carolina, we were able to conduct a randomized control trial to test whether pairing the special curriculum called Off-to-Class Foundational Literacy was effective when taught in small groups with students teacher alone, or if having an online tutor in groups of 1 to 3 students could further boost their progress. And what we found is that all students in the study made more than expected progress on the reading portion of the WIDA English Proficiency Assessment, compared to the average annual gains of all students who took the assessment. And those who were assigned to tutors did exceptionally well. Assignment to the tutor plus teacher model, as we called it, where students attended the foundational literacy lessons with an online tutor under the supervision of their ESL teacher, made 0.35 standard deviations more growth in English reading skills than students receiving foundational literacy lessons from their teacher alone. 0.35 standard deviations is the equivalent of 16 to 19 months of learning, depending on their grade level. So this is huge. And they achieved this at an average per pupil cost of $665, which is about a third of the federal and state funds that the district received for supporting English learners. So on a practical level, this study shows a lot of promise for pairing a tailored curriculum with a small group or one-on-one tutoring for adolescent English learners with low literacy. And it can be done on a budget that won't require major trade-offs at a time when a lot of districts are tightening their belts. Going forward, it's going to be important to test whether these results are replicable at scale and in other contexts. For example, we don't know what the power of online tutoring for these students might be in schools and districts that don't have enough English learners enrolled to hire a full-time ELD teacher. And there's a lot left to learn about how long it takes adolescent English learners to reclassify as English proficient, and this population in particular is understudied. So it'd be great to know if an intervention like this can power them through to proficiency so that they can have a better chance of obtaining the credits they need to stay on track for graduation. And the potential for long-term individual and societal benefits are worth keeping an eye on too. Where 1 in 5 US adults is functionally illiterate and half read below 6th grade level, there's potential to add significant value to the economy and improve productivity and decrease social services costs if interventions like this one can fast track students to literacy in the limited time that they have left in school.
Thanks so much. I have a quick follow-up question. The students obviously were in this intervention throughout the study, but did the school district carry on using this tutoring tool once the study was over?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics about what Richland 2 is going to do, but I'm pretty confident that they're going to continue with both the tutoring and the foundational literacy off-to-class lessons. There was a lot of interest in it. Both the tutors and the teachers said that the program, the platform, and the curriculum was easy to use, and they thought it was useful for teaching basic English skills.
Thanks so much. All right, so we just heard about a lot of different tools and a lot of different resources that have been developed to support English learners in the classroom. But now I want to shift our conversation a bit and think about the potential cautions and how technological tools are used to support multilingual learners. What are some of the considerations that you all think school systems should keep in mind when deciding whether and how to use technology to support their EL students? Steve, let's start with you.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of it is the true power. It's probably not the best word. The true knowledge and expertise lies in the people. It's like what we were saying about teachers, what Robin was mentioning there. And so empowering the teams that are making the decisions to choose the technology that works best for them. I think, too often as a teacher myself and thinking about what tools we were going to use, we were either faced with kind of feast or famine. I was probably never really feast, but it was like, you have money now, please spend it, or there's no money. And there wasn't often time to make the decisions that we needed to make, to use to purchase the whatever it was, the materials or the technology that we needed to use. And so that I think that's changed some, but a lot of those are decisions that are made sort of a higher level than school district. So I think just understanding what your specific need is. I do think a big part of understanding what you need to support your students in a school district and even a specific school or a specific class is data. And so that comes with very general demographic data, assessment data, and having quick access to it. That's sort of what Elevation was built on, is that it's one thing to have all that data in a variety of spreadsheets or SIS. It's another thing to have it in a place where you can very easily visualize it, customize it, and share it with those who need it. I mentioned assessment, but I think that's critically important. You know, depending on what consortia you're in around the country, you're taking different assessments, but generally those assessments are taken yearly or perhaps, a few times a year. That's really not enough. And so formative assessment, I think, becomes extremely important to make those decisions over the course of a school year, and then sort of use them at large and visualize all that data and understand progress, whether it's in the area of reading, writing, listening, or speaking, to sort of customize not only your instruction, but the tools that you're using to help inform that instruction. So I think, like, you know, while data and compliance are typically not words that are associated with or that are directly linked to like the power of instruction and being a teacher and seeing something on a student's face immediately when they learn something, it's really critically important, especially to understand multilingual learners and the various levels and languages that they speak. And I think it's probably even more critically important, given the demographics that you showed earlier. Am I at the risk of repeating myself? Those districts really need, or those states, those places really need to be able to understand who their students are, and what they need. So I think that's one of the first investments that you need to make is data, and then the form of assessment. Where I should mention, that's something we're really investing in right now. We're actually developing a formative assessment tool that will be ready in February. We actually have a bunch of pilot districts using it now. And it's been really exciting to see, and a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from our pilot districts is this is great because we love getting the access scores in if you're in a WIDA consortium, but it doesn't happen often enough, and we need to know what's happening at various times during the school year for all again, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So that's something we're investing heavily in, and I'm personally really excited about the future.
Does anyone else have any thoughts to share on this question of cautions and considerations when using technology? Thanks, Vero.
Yeah, I would add that I don't have the exact data point, but if you're working with an ed tech company, they've probably told you the data point that like a certain, that the efficacy of a tool goes up by a certain percentage if it has the correct dosage. So sometimes these tools are implemented and they don't have the right dosage, and so your outcomes are not what you're expecting. So I guess I'm saying that to lead to there is a need for consistency sometimes in the implementation of these tools to be balanced with flexibility. So I've seen in working with districts and seeing the various tools that they adopt to support English language learners, that it can go from one extreme to another. It's not the right dosage. There's not a lot of consistency with the implementation of the tool. There's a lot of variation across the classrooms too. We are going to have very strong requirements that it hits this dosage, this implementation. And then there's not a lot of flexibility there, that the dosage doesn't work for every child, that some kids are having a negative experience with the tool, but that there are regulations that requires the teachers to continue in this path. So like with anything in teaching, just because we implement an ed tech tool that says that it supports personalization doesn't mean that it's going to catch the personalization of every student. And we still need to trust our educators in determining when a tool is working and when it's not, and allowing the space for those teachers to create the adjustments that are falling outside of that dosage, or that are not the right implementation, that that research says it should be implemented in this way, because it's not going to work for all children at the margins. And so again, it's difficult, but really striking that balance between consistency and flexibility.
Thanks so much for that very thoughtful answer. I saw a lot of reactions in the chat, lots of hand clapping. One common trend across education is that the needs of English learners are often incorporated as an afterthought, particularly with curriculum development and other kinds of resources that are used to support students in general. My team at New America is focused on flipping that paradigm so that EL's linguistic and academic development are considered up front. What advice would you give to developers to ensure that their products are culturally and linguistically responsive to the needs of multilingual children? Vital, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. Love that question. Again, I think my advice to developers would be to slow down. We are moving at a breakneck speed, particularly in this moment in time with AI. And in a lot of ways, technology and AI can make our lives easier. We can scale our curriculum and our tools to 15 different languages. We can close the curriculum gap and reach more students through translating what we already have. But we have to recognize that language is more than just words. It's a worldview. It's a prism through which we see the world, and we cannot authentically engage our multilingual learners through translation and leaving the translation to the machines. We have to bring it back to the humans. We need to design with our multilingual learners at the centers, like you said, Amaya, not starting with a monolingual English-speaking child and then multilingualism after we do that. Our multilingual learners need to be the authors and not the afterthought. And so I'll give you an example. Our organization is building an app, the Billy app, that strives to do that. Our tool is for Latino multilingual learners, and we strive to create content, stories, learning experiences that reflect the rich diversity of our students, their culture, their vocabulary. It's not all the same, their accents. We lean into regionalisms and specificity, diversity of our language. The app is in English and Spanish, and we've also started to add indigenous languages of the Americas, like Aymara and Quechua. Now, we could just put our existing content into AI or a translation tool and ask it to give us Quechua version of everything that we have. Instead, we're creating the content the same way that we create our Spanish content, not through translations of the target language and with real speakers of the language. I was in a meeting recently with one of the authors of a story being written in Aymara, and I don't read or speak Aymara. So I was filtering the story through a Spanish translation, through a Spanish lens. And I pointed out a suggested edit to the tense to improve the clarity, and the author lovingly pushed back. She explained that Aymara has a unique system of time where the past is in the front and the future is behind. And I had no idea. My well-intentioned edit would have made this story nonsensical in the target language, Aymara. And this happens all the time with native speakers, when native speakers are not positioned to be the designers and authors of learning materials for children. So it takes longer, it takes more time, it doesn't scale, it doesn't make as much money, right? But it is the right thing to do. We know that this approach is the one that's needed for our students to authentically engage, to feel seen, to feel honored, and to honor their language systems and structures. So I would suggest that they slow down.
I love that. Does anyone else have anything to add to this question?
I would just say, like, really, really simply, and I think Beto got to this, is that, I mean, what's good for multilingual learners is good for all students. And so if you want to say it simply to folks who maybe have a hard time sort of understanding all of the complexity, you can say it that way. The tools that, I don't want to make this about elevation at all, but like the example that I'll give is Elevation Centric, because that's the world I know. We get asked all the time, hey, when are you going to create something for all students, or when are you going to create something for special education? And our answer is, we're not going to do that. Our focus is on multilingual learners. However, the resources that we're building, particularly the strategies that we build that are teacher facing, are good for all students. And so teachers report that when they use them, they can use them in the entire classroom. We're not trying to create a world in which we have two classrooms in one. We want to bring students together and give equip teachers with the skills and the strategy they need to support them. So I just think that's a really good foundation to build upon.
Thanks, Steve. And that's a good segue to our next question. We've talked about teachers quite a bit throughout the webinar. And given the rapid pace of adoption of different technologies and, of course, of generative AI, what types of professional development do educators need to help them use digital tools in support of their EL students? Robin, let's start with you.
Well, for the earbuds specifically, I believe it's our ESL teachers. I liked how Steve said to empower those teachers. I think they have a good opportunity here in the world of AI. I believe they should set the criteria for who receives these earbuds. So for example, they should be given to our newly arrived newcomer students with WIDA 1 or limited English proficiency, as I mentioned before, understanding how to use the device, which mode to work with, how to slowly progress to other modes. And ESL teachers should also know when students should use them, right? So during those teacher talk moments in the classroom, or perhaps during those more complex directions, ESL experts will also understand how to fade out their usage, right? Avoiding that reliance. So I think another important note to make here is I think that our students often master features a lot faster than we do. So I think we should embrace that as well. I had a student last week teach me a couple of workarounds with the earbuds. It was great. They just have a complete different approach to tech than we do, and I think we should value that. Moving on to generative AI as a whole, I think first I want to say that we are all still learning about how to best use AI, especially understanding those benefits, and I think all is worth sharing. So at the moment, we need professional development on how AI can help teachers save time, how AI can be a creative assistant when developing ESL-focused lesson plans, how AI can personalize activities for students, especially this multilingual population, how AI can help brainstorm and reflect on teacher practices, help give types of feedback. AI can do wonders for your syllabus, creating rubrics, assessment criteria, all those repetitive tasks that you can think of that you do on a daily basis is work that I believe AI can do for you. Allowing AI to do these tasks for you means also becoming AI literate. And allowing AI to do this for you as teachers will allow you to be more present with your students on a human level. And I like that we're talking about that because it's something AI can't do and something that our multilingual population need from us right now. So I truly believe if used productively, it could make a teacher's work life more manageable. But I also think you need to play with it. So to become AI literate, you should be playing with an AI tool. And I think a lot of us are too afraid to do so. I still have students and colleagues that have never opened an AI tool, right? So I invite teachers of all content areas, of all experiences, to create mini PDs, to share their knowledge on AI and how it is or isn't working in the classroom. Just really quickly, I think careful prompting is important. Rereading and rephrasing is essential. And AI has its own voice when writing, and it's identifiable among users of AI, right? So I think I'll end there. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Vero?
Yeah, I want to double tap on that. I think that's so incredibly important to understand how AI can be leveraged to support multilingual learner, children, families, the networks that support them. And I think the kind of currently, and it is evolving, the test that we use within our organization is that are we using AI for things that can help make us more efficient, that can support our work? Or are we using it for culture, nuance, and connection? Because AI can't do that. And so ensuring that those are things that we protect, those are things that we use AI to help us have more space to do these other things that are really critical and foundational to student learning.
Thanks so much. Our last question for the panel before we go into audience questions is focus a bit on research. So we've talked a lot about the rapid pace of technology and how quickly it's changing, but it's critical that we understand how these types of digital tools, like the ones we talked about today, but like many others that are being deployed in classrooms, are working and not in real classroom settings. We're facing a different funding landscape at the moment with a lot of reductions in funding for education-focused research at the federal level. And so many are concerned about what this means for what we will and won't know about not just technology tools, but a lot of different issues in education and types of interventions that are being used. What opportunities are there for public-private partnerships or research practitioner partnerships to ensure that this type of research continues? Havilah, can you start us off?
That's a really great question. Even if we sustain funding for research at pre-2025 levels, it's unclear if the research community, including those who fund studies, could keep pace with the technology advancements that we're seeing right now. We're all immigrants in the world of AI, even the people developing LLMs. And in addition to the federal divestment in research, there's also a divestment in data. We can no longer be certain that these NCLB era state assessments are going to be around forever. And even if they are, there's a chance that the data might not be made public in the coming years. So at the same time, we've seen major layoffs across public, private, nonprofit sectors. There's a real shakeup of talent and institutional knowledge. And state and district budgets are also shrinking for a number of reasons. Seems like a feral disaster, right? But on the bright side, I haven't seen the signs that the culture has changed. Decision makers from state policymakers on down to classroom teachers, including some comments in the chat that I've seen, I still want evidence for making the best choices. We still want information about what's going to be best for kids, what's best for our time and resources, what's going to add the most value for learning. And if you're managing a private company and you have a little bit of foresight, you'll care about the skills of the future labor force you're going to need to draw from in the next decade. So the short and the long-term socioeconomic well-being of our industries and our country as a value proposition for public-private research partnerships. We as a country and as individual companies have a lot to lose in a competitive global market if we don't have the data to make the best investment decisions, and we don't have talented people to collect, analyze, and make meaning of data. So right, there's a solid argument that independent evaluations are a critical investment for the health of American companies and its economy, especially when it comes to rapidly evolving and potentially high impact ed tech with AI and so on. So equipping foundations with these messages and evidence to back them up can help them make the case with their investors as well. And on the other side, we really need to keep our ears to the ground on what frontline educators are experiencing, like other panelists have said today, and how they're making decisions. With so much uncertainty around the availability of these large-scale standardized quantitative data sets, we can still gather valid and powerful qualitative evidence, especially around implementation, which is so critical in understanding how and why any intervention or any technology works or doesn't work.
Thanks so much. Anyone have anything else to share about this question of how we keep the research going?
I just emphasize two things that Abla said. One, I love this from someone who's clearly done a lot of research and been in the world, understanding the value of the qualitative part of it. I think that's hugely important to me. I think as a teacher, I was definitely way too far on that side and not looking at the data, probably because I didn't have the appropriate access to it, or it just wasn't maybe at the time. I thought that the reaction that I was getting from my students on a day-to-day basis was more important. It is really important, but it's also important to look at the data. So that's number one. The second thing that was mentioned, which I think is really, really important, is and a way that we can convince sort of naysayers about the value of multilingualism and the value of the students who, in my view, represents the future of our country and so much promise, is that economically, as a country, we cannot afford to leave these students behind. Not my first argument. My first argument is that everybody deserves an important, solid education. But that's an argument that's a valid one that we can also use to convince those who unfortunately don't see things that way. I have to run at 4 o'clock, as I mentioned, so I just want to say to everybody, thank you. This was wonderful, and I hope that the rest of the conversation was great. Thanks, panelists, and thanks, audience. Thanks, Amaya. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for joining us. So Steve's comments, I think we can go into the attendee questions, and his comments align with something that someone just asked about, and that is, how can we ensure that the current climate, which wrongly dismisses and downgrades the needs of these students, does not lead teachers and tech developers to dismiss or forget them too? Better go ahead.
I just want to say that's so hard. It's such a good question. In terms of tech developers, not to dismiss and forget them too, it's difficult because the federal government provides a lot of funds in terms of development of new technology, grants that are given. And so in submitting these grants, there are certain words that cannot be used in the proposal of the grants that they wouldn't be approved. And so what we're seeing is a shift in language. And we talked again about like how important language is and saying what we mean and naming a thing. And so I do think that there is going to be a shift for the developers of ed tech tools. There's a huge incentive by the federal government to push the development of ed tech tools and AI, and at the same time, a total gutting of the education Department Office of English Language Learner, I'm getting the acronym wrong, but our supports for our multilingual learners and protections for them. So I want to name that it's real and it's hard and it's happening. I think that means for teachers and for leaders of districts and charters and school systems to be aware that this is happening and that it's happening by design, and to have a closer look at where your autonomy lives and what decisions you can make and what filter you can have when you're looking at purchasing decisions and tools and the design of those tools, and ensuring that within your locus of control that you're investing in solutions that have the intention of serving multilingual learners.
Thanks, Vero.
I'll just add that, yeah, thank you, Vero. I'm totally on the same page with that. It's going to take a lot of courage, and it's going to take the whole community to come together and stick by our morals and by the needs that we're well aware that our communities are going to need to thrive, and the future of our country and our world. I mean, I was recently asked to help write a report where I wasn't even allowed to use the word language at all. So those are really difficult days for me, and I'm constantly asking myself how I can push back. And I think it's gonna have to be for us coming together as a community and deciding that this is worth fighting for.
Yeah, and I'll say that I'm seeing a lot of job postings and initiatives focused on how to better integrate AI and use AI to support students, and I'm wondering how much those sorts of initiatives are going to be focused on multilingual learners and the role that all of us have in pushing those folks in those positions of power to really consider this population and not just treat them not even like as a side thought, but to try to develop tools that don't actually match what they need or that are going to make them over relied upon, right? Because we want to make sure that they have those human connections and are able to have those rich real life experiences, right? Engaging in dialogue with kids in their classes. And this makes me think of another attendee question that I think is related. And we're thinking, because I think we talked a little about during our prep call sort of about the developmental appropriateness, right, of some of the technological tools and how you have to take that into consideration. So are there differences or important differentiations needed for our preschoolers or even younger kids when it comes to assessing EL skills using tech?
Yes.
I was just going to say, yes, you go, Beto. No, I was just going to say, obviously, a big, big yes. I think our younger students who, younger multilingual population of students, they acquire language so much quickly, right? Naturally. So, there's a lot of, especially translating tools that I'm focused on now that we don't really need to use, right? So I would say, especially translating AI tools that are available now maybe should be used with students in middle school, high school settings. That's what I was going to say, the first thing that came to mind. But Vero, go.
Yes, I, from an early childhood perspective, be so careful with how technology is used in early childhood spaces. And I think somebody put in the questions too of like the tech motto is move fast and break things, right? And we want to have tech and technology being tested out in schools. But I think in these early stages of development, when children are experiencing school for the first time, it's so important that we protect their focus and their academic identities and develop them in a positive way, because that's going to set the foundation for, how they see themselves as learners and participants in this school system. And I'll give an example. I was in a I think it was a kindergarten classroom. And the school district was using a tool for reading fluency. And there are a number of these tools, you may have heard of them, where you see the, leveled text for the child reads it out, the technology, AI, hears the child and corrects them or coaches them in real time. And this was a part of, what I was talking about, the school focusing on dosage and getting all of the students to do it at the right pacing so that they could get the results that they were hoping for. But in a multilingual dual language classroom that I was in, a lot of the students were frustrated. They would cry when they had to pull out this tool. The tool it had difficulty in hearing the particular student because of the noise of all the other kids. Sometimes these tools can be messy and not totally effective. Sometimes they didn't capture the specific accent of that student. And so what I saw in that moment with these children dreading reading with this tool is that these children were dreading reading, that they were feeling like they weren't good, that they were feeling like reading was a chore or something difficult to do. And so I think in early childhood, when children are just beginning to identify and figure out, like, can I read? Do I like school? Am I bilingual? Like, that should be the focus. And we should be really, really careful with with technology and how it's used in those settings.
Thanks, Robin and Vero. Thinking about AI and its connection with students, someone asked, how do we help students feel confident and connected when using AI without them feeling that they are plagiarizing?
I think AI can support ideas and planning and language checking, providing lots of examples. I think we need to model its ethical use. And I think I mentioned this before, but in order to do that, we need to be playing with AI. I think we also need clear AI rules on each task, what AI is allowed to do, what must be original, how to cite and note AI. And I think that would give way to celebrating voice a bit more, giving more credit. Maybe I can imagine giving more credit to personal examples where students see their thinking in real time. I can see us shifting to that perspective, and that would obviously build confidence.
I would add to that too, in terms of modeling. I think that's so important. We're all trying to figure it out, and modeling for each task, citing AI. We as a society and as adults don't have a way for citing AI. And we were just talking about this as a team because the tool that we're developing is for early childhood. And we think it's really, really important that kids understand what's created by a human versus what's created by a machine or robot or AI. Because in these early childhood grades, it has implications for their understanding of reality. And so often in early childhood, kids are exposed to tools that are AI generated and they don't know it. And so in the same way that kids can like watch a cartoon and movie and families have to have the conversation, monsters aren't real, right? Like, I think that this is a conversation that needs to be had in the early ages of AI literacy, so that when they, we haven't gotten there yet, but when they get to middle and high school, that they're comfortable with how to engage with this technology. I also want to put an example of our organization, a blog that we just wrote on our stance on AI. And we've come up with a little method to share, like, how much of it was used with AI. So at the bottom, we're developing an internal rubric to measure how much AI has contributed to creation. For now, this is indicated using a scale of 0 to 5 robot arms, where 5 means it was AI completely created the content. So this one has 1 robot arm because we used it for editing. So that is an example of, I think, what we could do more organizationally, we could do within our school systems, and we can invite our kids to do as well.
I think one of the challenges is that there's no adult education for using AI. So, like Robin suggested, you need to play with it, but nobody's telling us how to play with it. We're just sort of fumbling through it and trying to figure out what is the best way to cite this. Is there an efficient way? Is there an APA way to? The rules of the game haven't been fully defined yet, so that makes it challenging. But I feel like the best thing that we can do, even for older students, is to have a human in the room to help kids understand with you, the benefits and the correct uses, and how to continue to challenge ourselves to grow and learn with AI and maybe in spite of AI. I think what is AI going to take over that then we can jump to the next level? Is it that AI is going to do the research for us and then, or I mean, research for students, and then they go up and help explain what it means to the rest of their classmates? So I know there's a lot of question marks there for all of us.
All right. One final question for you all to think about is this. I agree with the presenters that we need to slow down on these tools, but how do we do so when tech's motto is to move fast and break things?
Why do we need to move fast and break? Yeah, there's always, I think, sort of the tension between like analysis paralysis and breaking stuff. So I don't have the best answer for you. I can't tell you which tech to choose and what's going to solve your problems and what's not going to solve your problems without good evidence. But we're never going to have the best evidence. So I think as much as we can get some sort of independent perspective of a technology before implementing it, whether it's user-based and not funded by a company, or academic research or independent research of any kind, or even reviews, communities of educators, communities of parents. Hopefully we can implement things that aren't going to break things. First, do no harm in education.
In schools, our things are students, and we can't break them, not even one. So, I mean, I think it's really important, like Havala mentioned, of like not having analysis paralysis, and taking what is useful from the tech world and that way of operating, which is prototyping, rapid response cycles, learning, and improving each time. But I challenge the word break because we cannot afford to do that in these settings. Families are entrusting us with their children, and each one of them matters significantly. I would say that the role of technology is only going to increase over the years and rapidly. And that way of thinking of move fast and break things will become ever more present. And I would encourage, I think as a non-technical person going into the ed tech space, I have years of experience as an educator, as a researcher, and I felt imposter syndrome going into the ed tech space. And then after a while, I realized what I realized when I first got to Harvard, that these are all just people. And I belong here as much as they do. And I think educators, as tech becomes more and more a part of our space, need to lean into their expertise and their knowledge and understand and trust their own gut around how children learn best. Take what is useful from folks that are bringing these technological advances and trust your deep knowing and expertise as educators. That's going to be your guiding force.
I
So
love that. It's just, oh, sorry.
go ahead,
Shall I
Rob.
stop?
No, go.
No, really quickly, I was just writing. The first thing that come to my head was, you need to trust your teacher gut. You know, the one thing we do is as teachers, we protect our students from any harm, right? And I think whatever AI tool you're going to bring into the classroom should be research based. I think AI can change the tempo of your classroom, but it doesn't really need to change the outcomes, right? So I want us to believe in our own expertise as educators. I think that will give us the right results. Something like that, I want to say. Thank you, Vedo. That was beautiful.
So before we wrap up, I wanted to offer you all the chance to offer a final thought or reflection on what we've talked about today, and just maybe even just looking forward.
We'll go. Yes, caught us all off guard, Amaya. But I love to be in communities like this. Just being with you all today has made me think how much I need to learn. And I invite all of us to continue finding these resources, just like this one, learning and then sharing. Visiting talking to teachers, create your own PDs, make mistakes, bring them, into your classrooms, share them with superintendents, because we're all learning. I think, Havala, you said something and I wrote it down. We're all immigrants in the AI world. I loved that because that's exactly how we feel. So, we should take peace in that we're all learning about AI and these tools that could harm or help our students get to where they need to get. So I'll continue doing that here as well. Thank you so much.
Gosh, I think my final thought is just gratitude. That's the feeling that I'm having right now, for having this conversation, for seeing all the participants who are engaging. It's not easy in our context to support multilingual learners, though globally, multilingualism is a very natural thing. If you go to certain European countries or African countries, like it's just in what we say at our organization, it's in our kids' bones. They're hardwired to do it. Yet in this context, it's really, really difficult to do for a lot of systemic historical reasons. And so the fact that everybody is in this room committed to doing the work makes me very grateful, inspired, and hopeful for the future. So thank you all.
I'm also very thankful for being part of this conversation today. So I'm thankful for folks to invite me to share my ideas. And I think honestly, there's a lot more expertise amongst our participants than maybe we can share with you today. So I appreciate your patience in listening to us, and the little corner that we can contribute to this conversation. And more than anything, I appreciate your courage in continuing the I guess very challenging work that it is to raise children right now, and multilingual, multicultural children in this environment today, who have many more stresses than they normally do, which are already high, and their parents as well. So we're just here listening and trying to equip you with whatever it is that you need to continue doing the great work that you do.
Thank you so much to all of you. I learned a lot from each of your perspectives, and look forward to hopefully staying engaged with you on these topics, because it's only going to get probably more intense as technology continues to evolve. I can see that Hillary has posted an engagement poll for folks to respond to about their experiences during the webinar. Thanks to the Campaign for Grade Level Reading for making this a priority topic, and for featuring the voices of everyone on the panel, and to everyone who participated and engaged. We appreciate you and all the work that you do to support this population of students and their families.
Maya, we want to say thank you to you for taking the time to just host this conversation today, and to New America for investing your time and energy into this conversation. We heard a lot of really powerful things. Vero started by talking about these long-standing myths and perceptions around the importance of heritage languages and their impact in academic spaces. And Steve, just started the conversation around this space of the role of EL admin, who know their students and their teachers best, and how they should lead in technology decisions. But I think it was a theme that got echoed across this conversation today, and we heard from many more of you. It's really the space of leading with not the technology, but the expertise, and then allowing the technology to solve problems so that skilled human teachers are at the forefront, because they, Robin, you said beat devices, right? They're the devices. They're not going to be beat by devices, but instead those devices can be things that increase participation, increase more work being completed, right? More access to the classroom, greater engagement, all of those things that you've talked about. And yet there's cautions, concerns in all kinds of spaces like over-reliance, especially at certain ages and stages, right? In the early childhood years, being cautious around using those devices and their impact on both learning identity, but also in these learning spaces of building language fluency that Veronica talked about, and really creating this space where, although we're paying attention to the data, the science, and the reporting around the technology, that we still take the steps forward in this digital ed tech age and recognize that it's a reality for us, and that we're all immigrants in it. I really liked that. And so I just want to say thank you to our panel for today, for all of those voices, for all of those themes that you pulled into the conversation, and really taking the time to join us. And just one more time, I want to say thank you to Amaya for leading this conversation on behalf of New America. So thank you. On behalf of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, we would like to invite you back. Please consider joining us, our audience, consider joining us on November 18th for a funder to funder conversation on Also at the 3 p.m. time slot on November 18th, we're going to have a session on parents as curators. That's around the growth and the potential of micro schools. We will continue that theme into December, where we look at parents as curators of their children's education and the opportunities and the implications that are in that space. And so we hope you'll join us for sessions both in the month of November and continuing through the end of the year, where we will continue learning and growing together. And so thank you for taking time to join us today. And we hope we will see you back with us soon.